A very good morning. Today is 30th July 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing the Hindu editorial page analysis. I welcome you all to Wifise Study Karo. The first article is regarding the COVID-19 and a country club India must leave. It is regarding how the COVID-19 scenario and the comparison between different countries. Instead, an opportunity awaits the nation to join other states that recognize the value of a just public healthcare system. As a billion Indians watched with horror and pandemic sweeps the land, many looked with the envy to countries that to the east of us, which the virus originated, and the west of us in the Europe, which were devastated just a few months ago, but appear to have beaten the bug and are stating to repair the societies. We are only draw some consolation from the fact that thankful we are not alone in our spectacular failure to contain the pandemic. We have Trump's US and Bolsonaro's Brazil to give the company. The poison of inequalities. Others have also noticed the curious composition of this country's club, perhaps the only one in the world which had no one wants to be the member of, and have begun to wonder what features that the three countries might have in common, apart from the fact that they are most populous countries, federal, diverse and democratic. No prize of guessing which is the most common theory which crops up in the fertile imaginations of the prospective observers, but that is not the theory which the author believes tells the whole story. The proposal is that what these countries share is a toxic level of historic inequalities which affect every structure of the society, including most importantly the healthcare system. The value of investing in just public healthcare system has never been as starkly obvious, but never before have entire countries have been brought to their knees by one disease. To be sure, there has been far deadlier epidemics which continue to kill many people than the COVID-19, but like HIV, diarrheal diseases and tuberculosis have mostly killed the poor and the marginalized outside the conscious radar of those in the power. More to the point, no previous epidemic brought the engines of economy to stand still. If some poor chaps have died of a horrible disease in some god-forsaken slum, secret towns or the villages in the back of beyond the stock market could not care less. However, on this occasion, for the first time, the wealthy and the powerful in the urban palaces have found themselves marooned, and their high-tech doctors and the super specialist hospitals can do little to rescue them. So, on an universal courage, what differentiates countries which have been able to pick themselves up and start walking with a few months after their first case was detected from those like ours which remain mired in the muck is commitment by both state and civil society to the principles of universal health coverage. To be fair, if universal health coverage was conflated with simple existence of public financial health care system, then India, like United States, Brazil, can already boast to have met this goal. However, this is not what universal health coverage means. Is the spirit. Only a system which is all people, rich and poor, those in the power, those who are powerless, can rely to be given the care with the same quality regardless of their situation or the station in the society, can be truly considered universal. Now, a question of quality, it is ridiculous that they are oblivious of the fact that India per capita income places as one of the poorest countries in the world, but beyond the clearly visible ills of the wholesale commercialization of the healthcare, there are a host of other challenges of realizing universal health coverage, from the standards of our infrastructure to the honesty and competency of healthcare workers, which contribute to the abysmal quality of the care in both private and public sectors. The pandemic has also brought the scandalous quality of our healthcare system into the sharper relief, as one daily date of the front page headlines alternate between the numbers of dead on one hand with the stories of pigs roaming freely in the absence of doctors in the public hospital to the shameless profiting of the refusal to the care by the private hospitals on the other. The proclivity of the doctors to irrational medical procedures and drug prescriptions, the lack of dignity with which the people are cared for, The legendary levels of the corrupt practices across the healthcare systems are well documented. At the heart of this pathetic state of affairs is a complete lack of accountability of either private or public health sectors, and the absence of the steward role of the state is ensuring justice and the quality of health care for all the citizens. It comes no surprise that there be a fundamental breakdown of the trust between the civil society and the healthcare systems, exemplified at its most extreme by the violence against the healthcare providers. Fixing the rot will need a structural reform far beyond the top-down missions and the knee-jerk punitive actions which have dominated our policy making over 70 years. But for this to happen, we need a broad coalition across the political establishment of civil society, in particular a wealthy and ruling classes, to demand. A historic opportunity is that for the first time the possibility of this happening as economists, business leaders and politicians who were wont to the view of public health care system as a charitable cause to address the disease and death of the poor to be attended to the footnote of the task of building our economy, can finally witness as a clear daylight how dysfunctional, fragmented and unaccountable healthcare system will ultimately destroy the economy itself. Even if the pandemic had hit the poor the hardest, it has also crippled the nation. But we need more than just new money for a while. Healthcare is the wisest investment for the economy. Such as investment must be accompanied by the social compact of the same system that caters to all. This philosophy of universal health coverage is already practiced in diverse ways, including the engagement of the private sectors by the scores of countries. The author cannot imagine a more historic opportunity for India to join this illustrious club of healthcare system. The next article is regarding the quest for the order instead of amid security, that is regarding the cyber insecurity. Better arrangements and intense partnership but with extra safeguards are needed in more contested domain. In cyberspace, it is best of the times for some, of the worst times for the other. Between them, Apple, Amazon and Microsoft have added more than $1 trillion in the market value since the starts of 2020. On the other hand, cyber attacks have also grown. In the week of April around 2020, reportedly they have around 18 million daily malware and phishing emails related to COVID-19 monitored by a single email provider, in addition to more than 240 million COVID-19 related daily spam messages. Twitter hackers collected around $120,000 in a full public gaze, while the ransomware target in California quietly paid around 116.4 bitcoins, that is around $1.14 million. There is also a concern about the role of the states. Australia mentioned the attacks by the state actor. China has been accused of hacking the healthcare institutions of the United States working as a novel coronavirus treatment. The United Kingdom has also warned the hackers backed by the Russian state targeting the pharmaceutical companies conducting the COVID-19 vaccine research. The ban on the specified Chinese apps on the grounds that they were engaged in activities prejudicial to the sovereignty and the integrity of the India adds another layer of the complexity of the contention in cyberspace. Cyber insecurity of the individuals, organizations and states are expanding amid COVID-19. While we are embracing a new way of digital interaction and more of our critical infrastructure is going digital, the parameters of the transformation under the way are not understood by most of us. Like global public health, cybersecurity is a niche area left to the expert. COVID-19 must be made to us to realize the role of global public health infrastructure and need to abide by agreed rules. Similarly, a better understanding of the global cyberspace architecture is required, and no global commons. Borderless cyberspace as a part of the global common does not exist. It is the illusion that connectivity across the national boundaries nurtured. The internet depends on physical infrastructure that is under national control and hence is subject to the border controls too. Each state applies its law to the national network, consistent that with international commitments. States are responsible for cybersecurity, enforcement of laws and protection of public goods. States are responsible for the action as well as the actions that are taken from within their sovereignty territory. This is easier said than to be done. The infrastructure on which the internet rests falls with the jurisdiction of the many states with the different approaches. Cyberspace has multiple stakeholders, not all of which are states. Non-state actors play a role, some benign and some malignant. Many networks are private with objectives differing from those of the state. Finally, cyber tools are dual use, cheap, and make attribution and verification of the actions quite a task. Nevertheless, the states alone have the rights of the oversight. There are also no equivalent of the World Health Organization which can monitor, access, advise, and inform about the fulfillment of the state's commitment in however limited and unsatisfactory a manner. In short, the search for cyber rules of the road is still on. We are at an incipient stage of looking for cyber norms that can balance the competing demand of the national sovereignty and transnational connectivity. The gaps in current process is that it was in 1998 that Russia inscribed the issue of the information and communication technology, that is ICTs, and international security on the UN agenda. Since then, 6 group of governmental experts, that is GGE, with a 2-year term and the limited membership have functioned the most on any issue of the United Nations. In addition, the open-ended working group, that is OEWG, began last year with a broadly similar mandate but open to all. More than 100 states evinced interest. However, it is meandering along with a report likely next year. The discussions of narrowly focused in line with the mandate of forum that is set it up. Issues such as internet governance, development, espionage, and the digital privacy are kept out, while the terrorism and crime are acknowledged as the important discussions on these that have not been the crimes. Both of the private and interstate nature share the rules of road become the imperative. We have a very active nodal agency of cybersecurity of Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, that is CERT, in Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. India has also representatives of the 5 and the 6 of the GGEs. We participate actively on OEWG, the Sangha Corporation organization of which we are the members, voice supporter for the Code of Conduct. India joined the Christchurch Call, which brought together countries and companies in the effort to stop the use of social media for promoting terrorism and violent extremism. The next phase, or in an increasingly contested and fragmenting domain, requires better arrangement and more intense partnership, but with more safeguards. Domestically, we need a clarity that adoption of the data protection legislation will bring. Globally, we need to partake in shaping cyber norms acceding to the Budapest Convention or the Convention of the Cyber Crime of Council of Europe, that is CETS, which started as a European initiative but has attracted others, is an option that we should examine. We need to encourage our private sector to get involved more in the industry focused process, much on the Microsoft initiated cybersecurity tech accord to the Siemens-led character of the trust. Engagement in a multi-stakeholder orientation such as Paris calls for the trust and security in cyberspace can help. In a preparation for the larger role of the cyberspace will inevitably play in Indian lives, we need to deeper public understanding for its various dimensions. Cyberspace is too important to be left only to the expert. This is regarding the cyberspace, how the things to be done. The next article is on Nepal and India ties. Trouble in Nepal on Nepal Communist Party factional fight. India will have to deal with KP Oli in Nepal, whether he is ousted or stays as a PM. The storm raging in Nepal ruling, that is Nepal Communist Party, is again rocking as KP Oli government and putting Kathmandu's polity in suspend over what might follow. A crucial meet meant to announce at an end of the difference between the party's two leaders, M. Oli and his rival, and Pushpa Kamal Dhal, was postponed on Tuesday. Last week too, the two rival factions decided to put off the meeting and the standing committee after the Prime Minister Oli failed to attend. While the bone of the contention which has roiled party members is that Mr. Oli continues to hold the two posts, that NCP chairperson and the Prime Minister. It's clear that there is a more complex power game going on. Party members leading to the move of Mr. Oli point to growing discomfort over the autocratic style The Dahal faction, which had merged with the Oli-led United Matrix Leninist, that is UML, in 2018, where they combined won a massive mandate in the general election, is also impatient for the chance of rule of Mr. Dahal. Is already unhappy over the past power sharing agreement that he believes Mr. Oli reneged on, and Mr. Oli still have residual bitterness over Mr. Dal's decision to pull out his previous government in 2016. There is also a concern that the Mr. Oli head-on collision with India over the past few weeks, beginning with the constitutional amendment to adopt a disputed map, as well as rather rash language against India, including the recent controversy over the birthplace of the Hindu god Lord Ram. Mr. Oli had also said that the believes there is a conspiracy against him, and alluded the alleged machination by the Indian embassy, that is in Kathmandu. Finally, there has also considerable disquiet in the party and in the press over the public role played by the Chinese ambassador to Nepal in bringing together the warring factions, especially that Mr. Oli's threat to split the NCP and revive the UML earlier this month. Many in the South Bloc will take heart, and many even rejoice over Mr. Oli's trouble, given his recent petulant behavior with the Modi's government. India-Nepal ties have also hit new low, with neither side willing to schedule the much promised meeting of the Foreign Secretariat to begin the sort out of the problems. Yet it is important for the Modi government and Indian mission to take the mature stand and play a more constructive role in the current political crisis, the largest struggle for the continuance of Nepal as a parliamentary democracy rather than the Politburo style and polity dominated by the party elite, also depends on the outcome of this tussle. While Mr. Oli is outnumbered in the ruling party structure, he also won as a mandate, and there is a little doubt that he remains popular in Nepal in a power hour or out of it. New Delhi will need to contend with Mr. Oli, whose polarizing politics could impact the country's fragile ethnic mosaic if not challenged deftly and with some delicacy. This is regarding the Nepal and India ties, how the KP Oli power will impact the Indian delicacy and also fragileness. The next article is regarding the Malaysian ex-PM Najib Razak. Malaysian PM Muhyiddin must not undermine the rule of law to cling the power. For the 4 decades, Najib was one of the most powerful voices of the Malaysian politics, the son of the former Prime Minister, a legislator for decades, and overall all-powerful Prime Minister for the 9 years. He suffered the biggest setback in his full career on Tuesday when the trial court found him guilty on the 7 corruption charges in the contention of the Malaysian Development (BHD), a financial fraud. He was also sentenced to 12 years in prison and also fined around $50 million. Billions of dollars were allegedly stolen from Malaysian Development (BHD) and an investment fund he launched in 2009, where the Prime Minister, by the employee and the fund or for the government. The money was traced by the prosecutor of the Mega Yacht, a Picasso painting, and the Hollywood film The Wolf of the Wall Street. His bank account also received around $1 billion. The allegations cost him dearly, leading to the first election defeat of Mr. Najib's party, the United Malayas National Organization, in 2018. But the infighting with the ruling coalition led to non-aggregate Mohammed led to fall. The new government returning to Mr. Najib's party to the power earlier this year. The country's prosecution and judiciary went ahead with the trial. Despite the change in the government and held one of the most powerful men accountable for his actions. The trial court has stayed the sentences until a higher court given a final verdict on his planned appeal. The verdict comes at the time when the Southeast Asian countries continues to grapple with the political instability. The new government of Yasin has the razor-thin majority in parliament. The opposition, led by the charismatic Anwar Ibrahim, accused the government for trying to help Mr. Najib. In May, prosecutors have also cut a deal with Mr. Najib's stepson Riza Aziz and dropped one MDB related charges against him, which triggered a political backlash. With Mr. Najib's conviction, the opposition is likely to revive its call for the vote of confidence, which Prime Minister had resisted so far. He would also face a pressure from UMNO, with 39 MPs supporting his government, and UMNO leaders have already come out in support for Mr. Najib, calling for the case of politically motivated. If Mr. Muhyiddin disowns Mr. Najib, who besides the appeal also faces a host of the corruption charges, Prime Minister could face a revolt from UMNO leading to his government's collapse. If he interferes in the investigation and trial, it could politically strengthen the opposition narrative and prove risky for him, especially when Malaysia is going through a volatile phase. Ideally, Mr. Muhyiddin should uphold the law, respect and independence of the prosecution, and distance of his government from Mr. Najib, but that would also mean putting his government at risk. This regarding Mr. Najib, who is a Malaysian political scenario. Thank you. This is end of article discussion. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.